Welcome into the Monday Mirror edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton, along with Wade Neely. We're coming to you from the Lee Company studios of our respective homes. Hope y'all had a great weekend keeping up with the Olympics or the the Pro Football Hall of Fame inductions or Major League Baseball or whatever it is that you were keeping up with. There was a lot to keep up with this weekend, but glad to be back. Glad to be able to talk about all of it, as we'll be talking for the next couple of hours about sports of a local, regional, national, and international importance. So, again, looking forward to it. Wade, happy Monday.
Good to see you. Good to be back with you, Mo. And like you said, a lot to tap into. It was almost like the calendar just flipped to August, and it's like, all right, it's go time. Because we had a big weekend, a lot of stuff. Vibes are good. Talking to a couple of high school football coaches over the weekend. They obviously are a little more in tune than, us media types are just yet. But everybody's kind of itching, and it just feels like we're headed in the right direction.
Everybody's amped and ready to go. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the best way to say it.
So, yeah. We will be talking in the second hour of the show with NUBYJAS WILBORN of alltitans.com, because, this Titans roster is constantly being remade, and yesterday was no exception. So we're going to talk with NUBYJAS about the recent signing of former Seahawks safety Quandre Diggs, among other things. But definitely that one kind of got our attention when we heard about it yesterday or last night, as the case may be. So we'll be talking to him a little bit about that and what else is going on in preseason camp as we wind toward the first preseason game of the year for the Titans. They will be taking on visiting San Francisco later this week. So looking forward to that as well. In the next segment, we will visit with Dave Hooker of Off the Hook Sports out of Knoxville. Josh Heupel and the Vols making more news over the weekend as well in the recruiting game. So, yeah, it's fascinating what they are being able to do up there. Speaking of good vibes, so lot of good stuff going on for the Orange, and going to talk to Dave Hooker about that in the next segment. Of course, we'll be talking some Braves. We'll be talking some other NFL and other college football as well. So it's it really is an action-packed show, and looking forward to getting to it. So Wade, what do you say? Shall we?
You're thinking what I'm thinking, partner. Oh yeah.
With no more ado, let us give you this weekend's results and today's schedule on the rundown.
This is the rundown.
Buckle up, gang. Here we go. But before we get into today's rundown, we want to tell you that it's brought to you by our friends at Zion Christian Academy. ZCA offers a faith-based, Christ-centered education in Murray County. So give them a call today. That number is 931-388-5831. Or you can visit zioneagles.org and schedule an appointment today. That's Zion Christian Academy, prepared for college, equipped for purpose.
Major League Baseball results of local interest over the weekend. The Braves with a 5-3 win over Miami on Friday. Houston opened its series against Tampa Bay with a 3-2 victory on Saturday. The news was not good for either Wade or myself, as Tampa Bay defeated Houston 6-1 and the Marlins defeated the Braves 4-3. More of the same yesterday, unfortunately. Miami 7, Braves nothing. Rays 1, Astros nothing. Minor League Baseball action. The Sounds fell 11-2 at Gwinnett on Friday and 8-5 on Saturday, but salvaged a split of that 6-game series with a 6-4 win on Getaway Day yesterday.
That takes us into the schedule. And in terms of rooting or local interest, it is a light schedule tonight, but we do have a game of somewhat importance, at least for this guy that's broadcasting here this afternoon. The Astros and Rangers will meet tonight. And the first pitch will come your way at 7:05 p.m. And that game can be seen on local TV or MLB.TV if you've got that. So Astros and Rangers once again at 7:05. That is the schedule for today. And ladies and gentlemen, that is the rundown.
Your top story brought to you, as always, by Piggly Wiggly and Neely's Mill in Columbia. Be sure and get over there and check out their delicious daily deli lunch options that are available until 6 o'clock every day, as well as their hand-cut meats. And everything is cost plus 10% at the cash register. Piggly Wiggly, Neely's Mill, Columbia, bringing you your top story today, as always. Today, we talked about Victoria Fraley, Vanderbilt All-American, Vanderbilt's national champion, Vanderbilt's Olympian, and we talked about her as recently as last week when she made the rounds on social media after a post saying that she was going to be unable to pay her rent late last week until Flavor Flav and the founder of Reddit came to her rescue, among others. So, with no financial issues on her mind, she was able to take the field for the Olympics discus competition on Friday. Unfortunately, her best throw of 62.54 meters was 13th in qualifying. The top 12 advance. So Veronica came just short, and that's pretty unfortunate. Her 63.66 throw at the NCAA championships in June would have gotten her into the finals, but she actually, I'm not sure that she's matched that since the NCAAs, because I don't think she did in Olympic qualifying for Team USA or obviously in Paris. So, peak too early.
It's tough, right? And especially with these events where everything is so measurable, whether it's track and field in terms of your time on the track or a field event like this, it's got to be really frustrating when you know that you have done better, just like literally you have done better, right? And,
literally,
yeah. I mean, that's the part that's got to be frustrating. It'd be one thing if you go out and you set your all-time personal best and you still come up short, but when you've done it before and you don't quite get there, that one that will stick with you. And unfortunately for Veronica, we were kind of hoping this story would really keep rolling. Obviously, everybody here in Middle Tennessee and now across the country really is kind of captivated with her and her story. So would have been sweet to see the ride continue, but unfortunately it comes up just shy.
Just a little short there for Veronica, unfortunately. As you said, I think she's young enough that she's going to have another shot at Olympics in 2028 out in LA, but you certainly want to capitalize on it when the moment is there in front of you. And again, just came up a little short right here. So you can still say you're an Olympian, and ain't nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I mean, that is a pinnacle of an athletic achievement. And the cool part too about this is, especially when we're talking about younger athletes, right? Some sports you can compete years and years and years down the road looking at you at equestrian. But I mean, when you're talking about young athletes that are even coming back to school, and then you kind of have this level of kind of notoriety and fame, that's what's really cool to me is kind of we're forming kind of the next few household names here. And you're going to be kind of wondering and kind of keeping tabs on her throughout the rest of her athletic career for sure.
For sure. Yeah. When somebody comes onto the scene like that, you do want to see what they do next and that kind of thing and how they stay with it. So I am quite sure that Veronica Fraley is a name that's not going to go away for us as far as that goes. Discus finals are this afternoon. Is that right? Am I reading this right? Let's see. Trying to see if we've got finals.
We had some pole vaulting going on my screen a minute ago. I hadn't seen any discus throws just yet, though. Not to say that it couldn't be going down, but I feel like today might be the day that everything is kind of really going.
I think it is in progress right now. And the US's Valerie Allman has a best throw to this moment of 68.74 meters. Qualified. Wait a minute. No, that's not right. I don't have qualifying distances what I'm looking at right here. But yeah, they are competing right now in the finals. So we will keep an eye on that. It looks as if Valerie Allman was actually the only US thrower to qualify for the discus finals. So Croatia's Sandra Elkasevic has a 67.51 right now. And those are your top two throws to this point. Again, it looks like everybody is heading into their fourth of 6 throws right now. So about halfway home in the Olympic women's discus finals. So we'll come back to that later on. Top story B. We probably didn't make as much mention of this as we should have last week, but Goodlettsville Little League is in the Southeast Region tournament down in Georgia, the 12U team, where we had gotten used to seeing Nolensville down there each of the past 3 years as a precursor to Williamsport, where they made the Little League World Series that you see on ESPN every summer. Each of the last 3 years became the first United States team to make 3 straight Little League World Series appearances. Well, before Nolensville, there was Goodlettsville, who advanced to the United States semifinals in 2016 and played in the Little League World Series final in 2012, losing to Japan. Well, they are back in Warner Robins, Georgia, and if they are going to make the next step to Williamsport, they're going to have to do it out of the losers bracket, because after winning their first 2 games in convincing fashion, 19-3 over Rainbow City, Alabama, and 11-2 over a team out of Virginia, they lost yesterday, 8, falling into the losers bracket of the 8-team tournament, and had their backs against the wall literally earlier today. They scored the first 2 runs of their game against Watkinsville, Georgia, came back and scored 6 straight. Led 2-0, gave up 6 straight, came back and tied it, and eventually won in 7, 11-6. So they are showing a little resiliency down there in Georgia, trying to keep their hopes of getting back to Williamsport again alive. And they will play that same Florida team tomorrow at 2:00 Central Time. That game will be televised on ESPN. So be on the lookout for that. Again, they opened down there Thursday with that 19-3 resounding win over Rainbow City, Alabama. Then they defeated Virginia 11-2 before falling to this Florida team that they're going to see in the finals, 8-1 yesterday. So good luck to the guys from Goodlettsville. We'll be looking out for you.
The OGs of Tennessee Little League baseball, right?
Yeah,
In many
for a time.
respects.
Yeah, I mean, for a time you saw South Nashville, which I think South Nashville has morphed into Nolensville, but it was pretty well South Nashville and Goodlettsville, and mostly Goodlettsville there for a pretty good while. Again, they were pretty much regulars, certainly in Warner Robins and in contention for getting to Williamsport on a regular basis. And this it's pretty impressive. something to keep an eye on. Again, tomorrow, 2:00, they will be on ESPN against Florida. So be sure and be on the lookout for that. Let's go ahead and take a break here from the Lee Company Studios on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we return, we will be talking a little Tennessee football with Dave Hooker. That's at the Dave Hooker from Off the Hook Sports out of Knoxville. So stay tuned after this break.
We thrive under the lights. A city of performers. Putting on one heck of a show. Headlining night after night. Welcome to Smashville.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Nashville Sounds Baseball is back in Hit City for the 2024 season. Spend your nights and weekends at the ballpark with weekly giveaways, fireworks shows, throwback deals, live music, and more. Top talent will take the field at First Horizon Park against the AAA Minnesota Twins, Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves, St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, and more. Tickets start at just $10 and are available now at NashvilleSounds.com. We will see you in Hit City.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Welcome back to the Monday Mirror edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton, along with Wade Neely, as we await the arrival of Dave Hooker from Off the Hook Sports to talk a little UT football. Again, big development on the recruiting trail over the weekend for Josh Heupel and the Volunteers as they picked up a commitment from 2026 quarterback Faison Brandon out of North Carolina, specifically out of Greensboro, North Carolina, which is, as if you're a Tennessee fan, you know that is also the hometown of one Hendon Hooker. Now, coincidence? Hey, maybe, but I mean, it certainly worked once. So, you know, I think what's intriguing about this commitment is it comes with Nico Iamaleava. There we go. On campus. Jake Merklinger, a highly touted quarterback out of the Midwest, is committed George McIntyre, a highly touted quarterback from Brentwood Academy, is committed. And now you've got, following those two guys, a kid that's about 6'3", 6'4", weighs just under 200 pounds, and again is thought to be one of the top signal callers in his class. Had 25 offers, was down to LSU, Alabama, and NC State, I believe, and tabs the Vols. And I mean, I think the question is how/why.
Certainly makes you wonder. It also, I mean, it feels like a classical game of musical chairs in some regards, does it not? There ain't enough room. Number one, only one of them can play. And number two, only so many can realistically be on the depth chart in terms of like making any sort of real impact or kind of keeping your name afloat to maybe go somewhere else. Kind of a little bit of a head scratcher as far as down the road. I mean, in a good way, though. Obviously, you'd rather have this situation with these rankings that they're talking about, number 1, number 12, 8, and 1. You'd rather have that than 111 quarterback in the country for sure. But it does kind of make you wonder what's going on.
Well, I mean, and the immediate reaction after it started making the rounds on social media was surely they're not all going to stay. And in this, in this world of transfer portal and NIL and everything else, I mean, that's certainly an easily understood reaction to having 4 guys of that caliber, set to either be in or come into your program at the same time. So, I mean, that makes perfectly good sense. But, those guys know, even as they commit, in the case of Faison Brandon, who's in front of them, and they committed anyway. So let's kind of explore in a little bit more depth this phenomenon with Dave Hooker. You can find him at the Dave Hooker on X or on Twitter, however you refer to it, but he's with Off the Hook Sports out of Knoxville. And Dave, first, good afternoon, but second, just wanted to get your thoughts. How is it that with so much talent, lined up to join this program, they are still able to court successfully more talent at that position?
Well, I think it's kind of, and you probably heard Maurice coaches say this a lot, it's kind of their dream. They always want to take a highly touted quarterback in every class. And I think with NIL and the ability, the transfer portal to be able to get away if you find yourself trapped behind a better player, I think that's made that a reality. I think that coaches are able to go out and get the creme de la creme from year to year. And if things don't work out for them, they can transfer elsewhere. And that's probably what will end up happening with at least one of the guys that's either on campus or committed or signed with Tennessee. I mean, at some point, either McIntyre or Merkling, or at some point, something would have to give, or maybe it's with Brando. We'll see.
That's interesting. I mean, I guess that's an interesting way to go at it. I'll see how it works. I'll see what it looks like, knowing that I don't have to stay. But my thing, I mean, it just feels like to me, why would you go to start with? I mean, I think it's fantastic that Heupel and that coaching staff are able to get that caliber of quarterback, particularly into their program. But what is it that they are doing right now that is selling those guys? I mean, again, that's a lot of 4 and 5 stars.
No, it is. And I think a lot of it's culture. I mean, I think the culture is really good at Tennessee, and that's probably a buzzword that's overused, culture, but I think they genuinely play hard, like one another. You don't hear of a lot of people getting in trouble. I think that culture is a big part of it. I think that Josh Heupel could probably make the argument that he can recruit any quarterback in the nation and get them, as well as any other coach in the nation could. I think he's he's right up there because of his style of play, what they do. The NIL money is obviously there, but I don't even think they need that as much anymore. I think that's more a pay players the big time money after they get on campus. So I think that as far as a quarterback, Josh Heupel is not going to be hurting anytime soon, not only with these guys, but I wouldn't be stunned if in another year we're having the same conversation about another 4 or 5 star guy that's committed.
And it seems like when he was hired, that was one of the concerns regarding Josh Heupel. Could he recruit Power 5 caliber guys coming out of UCF? It seems like to me we can put that one to rest.
Yeah, I think so. And I think when they signed Nico, that you probably said, "Oh, well, they had to pay him $2 million a year." Well, that's true. But now I think I'm not going to say they're completely level up with Georgia, but they're battling Georgia and they're battling the top programs and they're winning some of those battles in recruiting, and that wasn't the case not so long ago.
Dave, I'm curious. Everybody's kind of pointed it out that obviously only one of these guys can be on the field at any given time, and realistically, only so many can be on the depth chart even. But I'm curious, is there any, strategery, for lack of a better term, behind this move? Is there a potential different recruit that maybe this gets you in the door to maybe go after, or is this just flat out, like you've kind of phrased it, folks just wanting to come be a part of Tennessee now and then just see what happens once they get to campus in terms of competition?
Do you mean strictly with Faze and Brandon, the quarterback?
Not necessarily. I'm really kind of just thinking about the strategy of a whole, I guess, of adding so many talented QBs. The other thing I'm thinking is kind of like you mentioned, if you're recruiting them, the good news, and they're committed to you, the good news is they're not going anywhere else. They can't start for Alabama if they're on your bench, is the way I'm looking at it too. So
That's true.
I guess I'm really just curious, is there a potential, I guess with Brandon specifically, is there somebody else that maybe this move gets you in the conversation with down the road or something?
Well, I think it's huge in that regard, in that it continues. Hendon Hooker's from the same hometown as Faison Brandon, Greensboro. So I think it helps you in North Carolina. Those that are old as me, Maurice probably remembers it. Tennessee practically won a national championship off of defensive line talent from the Carolinas. So they've got to be good there. I find it interesting that Clemson, Georgia, and Tennessee have not typically all been good at the same time. I think that's because they're battling for a lot of the same prospects in North Carolina. And I think that Brandon helps you get into North Carolina. Now, we'll see if he's an active recruiter. George McIntyre has been a very active recruiter for Tennessee. Nico was not so much an active recruiter because he played volleyball. So we'll see how much of an active recruiter he is. But just having the top player in North Carolina is going to help you recruit that state, no question. And it also helps you recruit South Carolina as well.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I guess I was wondering is, and also, but surely these kids, or at least these 4 in particular, we see it all the time. And I'm kind of thinking Joe Burrow obviously is your classic example here. Even if you potentially got to campus and didn't start right away with the transfer portal the way it is, it would be better, in my estimation, to think about transferring from a school like Tennessee than if you committed to an App State or somewhere of that nature and then try and re-roll your recruiting out. That's just kind of how it appears to me. I'm curious your take on that.
Yeah, well, I think that comes down to relationships and how you handled your business during your time at whatever school you choose. So you get a good recommendation from the coaches there. But the other harsh reality of this is, people don't want to hear about their favorite coach, but Josh Heupel, I'm sure, has told quarterbacks that it would be in their best interest to leave. As a matter of fact, I had one reach out to me on Twitter that shared that fact. So that's just the day and age of football that we live in. Used to be you would get destroyed in recruiting by high school coaches if you pulled a scholarship or ran a kid off. But that's just the way things go nowadays. And I don't feel sorry for the players because they're making good money doing it now. So that's the trade-off.
Dave Hooker from Off the Hook Sports out of Knoxville, joining us here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. And Dave, as you talk about, pulling scholarships, or maybe nudging somebody in a different direction, that kind of thing. In this day and time, to follow up, you're almost kind of doing the kid a favor, aren't you?
I think you are. Yeah, I mean it beats just sitting the kid on the bench for 3 years, and I've seen that happen with a lot of guys that I thought could have been good players, maybe at a smaller school, but just really struggled at the SEC level. I mean, I could list off guys that I thought if they had an immediate transfer portal and they showed up and they said, "I'm not ready for this. I'm not this good. I was wrong." The people who evaluated me were wrong, and they could leave immediately. You'd have a lot more success among quarterbacks. Now, I don't know what that would do to the other positions, but I think the quarterbacks would be log jammed a lot less often.
Sure. Did I see is Brandon's not their first 26 commit, is he?
No, it's their first 26 commit. Yes.
Okay. All right. It's a heck of a get to get things started, I would think.
Yeah, it's pretty good way to get things rolling. And to beat Alabama and LSU, I think speaks volumes about what Tennessee has been able to do, because I know Nick Saban's not at Alabama, but Kalen DeMore has done a fantastic job with quarterback. So Brian Kelly has a history not as strong as DeMore with quarterback. So, but again, I think if Josh Heupel walks in your door and says you're going to throw it around 80 times and you're going to throw it around to 80 great receivers, you're going to win a lot of those battles.
Dave, I'm also curious, perception-wise, Tennessee, not even looking from the Tennessee angle of things, but from the other schools in the SEC or even nationwide, is this kind of a further notice being served a little bit that no matter how this plays out, Tennessee is capable of now going out and getting the number one in player in any class?
I think so. And, I think that statement had been made previously with I look at the Hayward kid, a commitment they picked up 2 Saturdays ago. And, that was a guy who was very interested in Georgia. So I've kind of felt like that Tennessee was pretty close to standing toe-to-toe with the elite in recruiting, which now is pretty much Georgia. We used to always say Georgia and Alabama. It's pretty much Georgia is the recruiting elite in the nation. So if you can win 1 and 3 with those, you're doing great. If you can win 50% of those battles, you're probably playing for a national championship.
It just feels like, that something is up and there's some sort of ulterior play here. And I think that maybe is what it is. It just almost to me feels like Josh Heupel saying, you know what? I can go in any living room, grab any recruit, no matter how many quarterbacks I got on the roster, and here's the results to prove it. And to me, that's kind of what I'm taking away, is it's kind of sending a little bit of a message to the rest of the country.
I think it was a really big message. And I'm interested to visit with the young man and see if he's going to actively recruit for Tennessee like McIntyre, because that's the guy that, if you want to say odd man out, I would not say odd man out. I like a lot about George McIntyre's game, both watching him and I mentioned how much he's recruited for Tennessee. I mean, if there is a prime prospect in Knoxville, he will make the trip to Knoxville to be a part of that young man's recruitment. So I talk about there probably will be an odd man out at some point. I would say it's not going to be George McIntyre.
Yeah, that would be tough, I would think, with his in-state status in particular.
Yes, being right down the road, and again, I can't remember a guy recruiting as heavily as he has from the quarterback position. It's been a number of years
from the quarterback position, because I was thinking Vic Wharton. But yeah, specifically from the quarterback position, you're probably right. Dave Hooker of Off the Hook Sports joining us here on Main Street Sports Today. Dave, let's get away from guys that are going to be on campus in a couple of years and let's turn the focus to guys that are on campus right now. What are you seeing in preseason camp?
I'm seeing a team that is still trying to find themselves, and most recently you have the injury to Jordan Thomas. I think he was probably going to start at the star position, the nickel position is what they call the star. So I thought he was going to start there. I think that opens it up for Boo Carter, and I think there's a real opportunity for him to step in there. I know we've talked a lot about him, but I do think that Tennessee still has to answer some questions on their offensive line in terms of depth, and I'm not sold that the secondary is immediately great just because they replaced everybody. But I would have to say to this point, other than the injury to Thomas, practice has gone pretty well.
The idea of Boo Carter getting on the field as a true freshman really speaks volumes to the talent that he brings onto campus, I would guess. And he was a guy that, primarily lit it up on offense, but obviously he's done enough defensively to put himself in that mix. He's just, for a freshman, relative to what you expected, what has he been to this point?
Now, I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit, Maurice.
I just said for a freshman, relative to what you expected out of Boo Carter, what has he been to this point? Particularly for a guy who had pretty well earned his bones on offense in high school.
I may be the wrong guy to ask because I was told by a pretty good source that there was a good chance that he was going to start by midseason in Tennessee's defensive backfield. So my expectations were pretty high, but to come in as a freshman and play at all in the SEC is pretty impressive, and I think it speaks to his athleticism. I think he's a young guy that could still use a little bit of coaching. Who couldn't? But I do think he's definitely athletic enough to play the position today.
There you go. Interesting question, obviously, on offense. Where is Brew McCoy? How is he coming along from that awful injury that he's had last year?
Coming along great. Has been fully cleared. I'm sure they'll protect him and limit him some in practice. I can't speak to what an incredible leader he has become for this football team, and not only physically is it important that he's out there, but I think him being out there brings a real leadership factor. So you hope he makes it through the season healthy after that injury, and just a really fine young man. I've really enjoyed my dealings with him.
Dave, we get Chattanooga to open things up on August 31st. Number one, that just is crazy to think about because it feels like we've been just slowly getting there, but now it's really right there ahead of us. And then what would Tennessee like to, in your mind, get accomplished? Or maybe, where's one real big question mark in your mind that they would like to take care of either by Chattanooga or certainly the next week versus NC State?
I think they probably like to, other than, score 50 and probably have Nico go out there with the starters for one drive. That's what you want to do against a lower level opponent. But I think other than that, have some answers at not only that star position that I talked about, but also the strong safety position. Do you know who your starters are going to be there? Also, I think by that point, and they may know this already, is Andre Carey going to be better than competent left guard, or is that just his ceiling? If that's his ceiling, then I think you've got to consider doing some other things there. If you have somebody else that can play, is Bison Lang and Jackson Lampley ready? Young offensive linemen that haven't been ready to this point. So we'll see. But those would be the two things I think they'd like to accomplish by the Chattanooga game, is just know who their left guard is going to be and know who their starting five are going to be in the secondary.
Dave, who is a guy that we've not talked about that by that NC State game, or maybe coming out of that NC State game, we're going to be talking about for Tennessee?
Arian Carter. I think Arian Carter, I'm not saying that he's James Pierce, but I'm saying if there's a level of talent, and James Pierce is on the very top level, the tier below that is Arian Carter and a group of other players. So I think you'll hear about him. I think he would have had a really good year last year, but he got hurt shortly after Keenan Pili got hurt. So the linebacker position was just a mess for the Vols last year. But now with Pili in the middle and Carter able to roam outside, I think you'll see him turn in at least a
lot of folks in Middle Tennessee will be happy to hear that because Arian Carter played his high school football over at Smyrna. So looking forward to that working out that way. Dave Hooker from Off the Hook Sports out of Knoxville joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Dave, we appreciate you taking some time with us, and I'm sure we'll be swinging back to you.
I hope so. I appreciate it, guys.
Sounds good. Thanks. Hey, when we continue here on Main Street Sports today, we will be talking a little baseball, so stay tuned when we return to the Lee Company studios after this.
Nashville Sounds Baseball is back in Hit City for the 2024 season. Spend your nights and weekends at the ballpark with weekly giveaways, fireworks shows, throwback deals, live music, and more. Top talent will take the field at First Horizon Park against the AAA Minnesota Twins, Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves, St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, and more. Tickets start at just $10 and are available now at NashvilleSounds.com. We will see you in Hit City.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today. Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
.95, Marquise Grissom goes 5 for 5, scoring a run and driving in a pair to help his hometown team beat his former team as the Atlanta Braves defeated the Montreal Expos 9-6. Acquired earlier in the spring, Grissom was a key cog for the Braves over his 2 seasons, catching the final out of the 6-game World Series win over Cleveland later in 1995. That was this day in Braves history. Marquise had a nice career with the Expos, Braves, those Indians, among others. It's fun watching him that couple of years in Atlanta, though, his hometown. So that worked out well. Yesterday did not work out so well in Atlanta for the Braves, as they were shut out 7-0 by Miami. First time in 232 games that the Braves had been shut out.
Whew.
Yeah. 232 regular season games, because Philadelphia Phillies fans would happily remind you that they were blanked in game 1 of the playoffs last year. But yeah, 232 regular season games without a shutout before yesterday. So wound up splitting that series with the Marlins after winning the first 2 on Thursday and Friday, falling 4-3 on Saturday, and then yesterday's debacle. So could not quite capitalize, or as well as they would have liked, on Philly dropping 2 of 3 out at Seattle. But the Phillies hold a 6-game lead in the National League East, for whatever that's worth, after their 6-0 win at Seattle yesterday. And again, I'm really kind of torn, because given the last couple of years, how things have gone as NL East champions in the postseason, I'm still not sure it's that big a deal. I don't want to say that you don't want to win it, but I do want to say that I'm not sure how disappointed I'll be if they don't win it. So that's, I guess, kind of where I'm at on that.
Well, 2 things. Number one, from a pure fan standpoint, yeah, you're probably thinking, why not? Let's try. Everybody else has kind of had some success doing this. Let's try that method and see what happens. And the other good thing is we talked about their cushion ish, if you will, in the wild card. So, if this was a half game, life or death wild card race, which who knows what happens, but if it was really a fight all the way through, then obviously, yeah, you'd be a little disappointed if you potentially could have got some ground made up on the division and you didn't. But the fact they're kind of sitting okay is they're kind of just seems like overall they're playing on a better stretch, which is that team is good enough for them to be playing on that good of a stretch is better than a lot of the league. So I wouldn't be shocked if they maybe continue a little bit of a nice run here.
Yeah, you feel like this was just kind of a little bit of a lull, but at the same time, as you look at the wild card, things have kind of tightened up, because both the Padres and the Diamondbacks sitting there right with or right behind Atlanta. The Padres are tied with the Braves for that top wild card spot, and the Diamondbacks are a half game back. Mets also lurking, as well as the Cardinals and Pirates, even all of them within about 3.5 games. So it could get interesting. Somebody else to keep an eye on suddenly here in this wild card situation: the San Francisco Giants, who sort of announced their presence with authority Friday night, as Blake Snell, who had never thrown a major league pitch in the 9th inning over his 9-year career, did so in impressive fashion Friday night, completing a no-hitter against Cincinnati. This guy has been an all-star. He's won a couple of Cy Youngs, but he had never completed 8 innings.
That is crazy.
It really is. I mean, I don't know how that happens.
Yeah, and I mean, I know we've talked a lot about the pitching rules, and we just don't see the guys going that deep. But I mean, he's been around long enough that he was kind of still riding some of that old school mentality, I think. So I found that kind of fascinating.
Yeah, they can't say it anymore. Complete game, shutout, no hitter, leave me alone. He doesn't go into the 9th inning. He doesn't go into the 8th. Just did it. Leave me alone. That's a little much. You are 9 years into your major league career, and this is the first time you've pitched in the 9th. I mean, congrats on the no-hitter. It's awesome. The first for the Giants says Chris Heston in June of 2015. The third this season, behind obviously Ronel Blanco on April 1st and Dylan Cease of the Padres on July 25th. In fact, when I first heard that Blake Snell had thrown a no-hitter, my first thought was, wait a minute. The Padres had only had one no-hitter in 40 years, and now they've had two in like a month. And then I had to remember, no, he was with the Padres last year. He's with the Giants now. So I had to recalibrate. But, I mean, that's and it's an awesome feat. And again, I'm happy for him. But, you pitched into the ninth once that night. Pump the brakes. I'm not gonna call you a workhorse all of a sudden, So, but I mean, anytime you can get one, it's great, and the fact that he was able to do it in 114 pitches. I mean, I don't know what his pitch counts have been previously that have kept him out of the ninth, but again, he threw this one on 114, so kudos to him.
And what's crazy, Mo, is he was one of those guys that was thought to be right there on the trade block and ended up hanging around. And so seems like, I mean, at least for one night, it was a good move. Everybody was certainly happy, and we got that magical moment for all parties. But yeah, it seems like it was a decent bit of business by the Giants at this point in time.
Yeah, you know what they say, Wade, sometimes the best trades are the ones you don't make.
I mean, yeah.
That may be the case for San Francisco. At least it was Friday night. Snell had thrown 7 no-hit innings twice previously, once against the D-backs in 21, once against the Rockies last season. But 8 no-hit frames was a personal best, over 7 2/3. So, and you got to let him roll at that point. Whatever his background, whatever his history is, I think if a guy takes a no-hitter through 8 full, you got to give him a shot to go out there anyway. So he did. Got a strikeout, got a comebacker, and then got a line out from Ellie De La Cruz in the right center gap for the final out. So, flirted with a little disaster there on the very last pitch, but able to get it done. So again, congratulations to Blake Snell. That's awesome.
I wouldn't be surprised if we see another one, because it feels like we had Blanco early and you're thinking, oh man, we're really in line for a lot. And then we kind of went a while, but then now all of a sudden it kind of seems like maybe, Cease and then Snell, maybe we'll see another one or two before we finish up this regular season.
Yeah. I can tell you who won't be throwing it. Nobody who pitches for the White Sox.
Seems unlikely.
I mean,
that also seems like the only way that they can win a game right now is Hey, Crochet, we don't need much. You just got to throw a perfect game today for us to have a chance to win.
Just a perfect game. 27 up, 27 down. We're not asking for much. Yeah. 20 straight after losing 13-7 to the Twins yesterday.
Whew.
Goodness. Now, as we mentioned last week, you could say that the schedule kind of turns for the White Sox as they travel to Oakland for a 3-game series starting tonight. And I guess the question within a question is, if you suffer your 21st straight loss and nobody sees it, did it really happen?
Yeah, it's
because Oakland is averaging just over 9,000 fans this season. Dead last by a wide margin, according to this article on WGN TV. So, I mean, the good news is maybe nobody will see you continue this exercise in futility if you are the White Sox.
Yeah, it's reached. We really got into it a little bit last week, toward the end of the week, but woof. it's kind of reached that point, like I said, that we're going to end up with the ticker on ESPN, days since the White Sox have won a game. And I mean, the trivia questions can start running wild. I mean,
The 2024 White Sox are the 7th team in MLB's modern era to lose at least 20 straight. They are the first in 36 years. That would have been the 1988 Baltimore Orioles, who from April 4th to April 28th dropped 21 in a row. Guess how the 88 Orioles broke their skid?
Don't tell me a no-hitter.
No, not a no-hitter, but they defeated the White Sox 9-0 at Comiskey Park.
Hey, I'm wondering which is harder, winning that many games in a row or losing that many games in a row?
Ooh.
Because what the A's get up to? They get 23 in the money ball?
23, 26, something like that. It's a good question.
20 games. They just went for 20. We were hyping them up a little too much, man. Yeah, winning 20 games or losing 20 games in a row. That's an interesting riddle there.
It really is. Let's see. Somebody won 26. Hang on a minute. Oh, not that I remember. The 1916 Giants won 26 straight. The Guardians won 22 straight in 2017. Those 2002 A's that you mentioned won 20 games straight. And then the White Sox in 1906 won 19 in a row. But yeah, most recently, the Guardians won 22 straight in 2017. So it feels like it's harder to win 20 straight than to lose 20 straight.
That's what I'm thinking. I mean, to win games, you have to have a little bit of luck every now and again, and to have a streak like that, I should say. To lose that many games, I mean, you kind of obviously could have some meltdowns in games like you're supposed to. And we saw, I forget who they played last week, the Royals. Maybe there was a lead they blew in the 8th inning. Yeah, I mean, so that's the opposite of that, I guess. But it does feel like, on average, it probably is harder to show up and win 20 straight, I think.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you, I think. So, yeah. Well, we will be keeping an eye on the White Sox and the Athletics, and I'm sure we will be discussing it more tomorrow, one way or the other. So, hour number 1 of the Monday Mirror here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, has come and gone. When we return to the Lee Company studios, we'll be talking a little football, or a little more football, both of the professional and the collegiate variety. So stay tuned after this break.
We thrive under the lights. A city of performers, putting on one heck of a show. Headlining night after night. Welcome to Smashville.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you. No matter what's happening in the world, or at your house.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50-plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily, as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Nashville Sounds Baseball is back in Hit City for the 2024 season. Spend your nights and weekends at the ballpark with weekly giveaways, fireworks shows, throwback deals, live music, and more. Top talent will take the field at First Horizon Park against the AAA Minnesota Twins, Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves, St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, and more. Tickets start at just $10 and are available now at NashvilleSounds.com. We will see you in Hit City.
Second hour of the Monday Mirror edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, starts right now. I'm Maurice Patton, joined by Wade Neely. Wade, we talked about all the stuff that took place over the weekend. Well, one of those things was the Pro Football Hall of Fame induction, as Dwight Freeney, Randy Gradishar, Devin Hester, Andre Johnson, Steve McMichael, Julius Peppers, and Patrick Willis were immortalized in Canton on Saturday. And I tell you, I had never really watched the Pro Football Hall of Fame induction ceremonies. And for whatever reason, I mean, I guess I was here at home Saturday doing some work and it was on. So I checked out a good bit of it. And I'm not telling you anything you don't know when I say that this really means something to these guys. I mean, a lot of emotion, a lot of heartfelt comments, that kind of thing. It was a lot of reflection, and it was really kind of cool to see. I guess I got to see, I did not get to see a whole lot of Peppers's induction speech because I was moving around and leaving the house, but I think I got to see some of pretty much everybody else, and just the reverence that they held the Hall of Fame in was really, it shouldn't have been surprising, but it was really kind of impressive to me, what it meant to those guys to be recognized in this manner. So it was really cool. Wade, you're muted. Try again.
Now we're talking.
There we go.
Yeah, they do a great job with this thing, and I didn't get to watch this year's. But over the years, if it's somebody that I grew up, Curtis Martin, one of my all-time, probably my all-time favorite player in NFL history, watched his speech. Randy Moss, Ed Reed was also another favorite of mine growing up. So, those were the ones. And anytime you get a chance to see Charles Woodson and Peyton Manning side by side at a ceremony, you never know what's going to happen, if you catch my drift. But that was really cool to see those two legends on both sides of the ball go in together. And Devin Hester, it was kind of cool, like we mentioned last week, that he goes in kind of as the kickoff, even though we didn't see it Thursday, really, might be kind of coming back in vogue a little bit in terms of what could be an explosive situation. Peppers is a great two-sport player from back in his college days, but man, he was a terror on the defensive side of the ball. And so not getting to watch, I do feel like I shortchanged the NFL a little bit, but it is fun. They do. MLB's is pretty solid too, but it certainly feels like the NFL does a great job with theirs as well.
It really does. I feel like for whatever reason, there was something that elevates the NFLs over Major League Baseballs. I can't really put my finger on it, I don't think, but it does. I was really impressed by Devin Hester's comment that he made going in as the first returner that I'm not the only returner that deserves to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I'm just the first. And it'll be interesting to see how that opens up doors for other guys who were, primarily return guys to get into the Hall of Fame. A lot of back and forth on social media regarding Steve McMichael, obviously, suffering from ALS, and he had some of his Chicago Bears teammates and Hall of Famers around him in his home as he was inducted into the Hall of Fame, and man, it's kind of tough to watch. I mean, obviously not in good health, nonverbal right now, and the bust was there. He was actually wearing his gold jacket and that kind of thing. I think his sister kind of read his acceptance speech, but uh, you know, I, I think that some thought it was emotional. I think some thought it was a little morbid, to be honest. Um, it was, like I said, it's kind of tough to watch. And as friend of the show and former coworker, and Jeff Pearlman says, the fact that probably pro football is the reason Steve McMichael is in the shape that he's in right now physically is it's kind of a tough thing to kind of deal with. And I'm not trying to tell anybody what to feel about football or whatnot, because it's above my pay grade. I don't know. I don't even know how I feel about it. Uh, we know some of the results of constant hits, particularly to the head and upper body and that kind of thing. And I'm just not ready to pass judgment on anybody that plays it or watches it or doesn't. You know, uh, but it's tough. It's tough to see Steve McMichael in that situation, and I don't know what you do with that. But that was I don't know if that was as positive an image as the NFL and the Pro Football Hall of Fame wanted to create with that scenario there.
Yeah, talk about a delicate situation. The producers and the league at whole, you're trying to really walk a tightrope there of being respectful, but also in trying to pay respect to Steve and his family and do the right thing, but also, yeah, kind of not really tap into the super morbid realm of it in a sense. So it was a difficult task, and I thought it was cool that so many teammates and everybody, that what they say, we're your world champion brothers here. They kind of made reference to that 378 brothers back in Canton. They said they're looking out for you. I mean, kind of cool in the sense that everybody's sticking up for Mongo, but man, it um, should have been a really really special ceremony, but it was kind of difficult at times. It sounds like.
I think you really hit on it. Very delicate
Yeah, gotta be.
situation.
I mean, man.
Yeah. Um, McMichael diagnosed with ALS in 2021. Um, and clearly that's a very, very unfortunate situation there for anybody who has to deal with that, former pro athlete or not. So wishing him and his family the best as far as that goes. Late last week, Wade, the NFL's top 100 was announced, and they kind of rolled them out in cycles, 76 through 100, 51 through 75, 26 through 50. And then I think they got to like 10 through 25, and then they started counting them down. And you knew something was amiss when number 4 was Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah. Very interesting, to say the least. These things are designed to be lightning rods, but even though you know that, when you see it, you still kind of start foaming at the mouth a little bit when something like that comes out. Come on.
Yeah. Provocative, I guess, is the phrase that kind of comes to my mind with that kind of thing. But so ahead of Mahomes, your top 3 guys were Lamar Jackson, Christian McCaffrey, and Tyreek Hill. Thoughts?
My thought is that, yeah, kind of what I initially said. I try not to get too worked up about these, and I can't remember who had the list, but we broke it down on this show a couple months ago, where Will Levis is listed as like the 31st worst quarterback in the NFL or something. We got all fired up then. He's also the lowest rated quarterback on Madden. Those rankings just got released the other day. So get ready. That'll be coming too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Tyreek being number 1 seemed a little off. You know, I could make it depends for me. And Heather has made mention of this a little bit as well. And I'd be curious to ask her on Wednesday.
You may not have to ask, but okay.
She has mentioned, and it is a thing, postseason Mahomes is God. I mean, that's God mode is what that is. I mean, that is the GOAT, postseason Mahomes. Now, if this is just regular season, I can make an argument for Lamar Jackson specifically being ahead.
Mm-hmm.
If you're all encompassing, maybe it floats back down a little toward Mahomes. But yeah, if it's the criteria on this is so interesting, but the fact he was number 4 is the one that draws the lightning rod and the controversy, because when that came down, everybody flocks to socials, and it was just on from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, Hill is your number 1, Jackson number 2, McCaffrey number 3, Mahomes 4, and Myles Garrett at 5. I wonder, Wade, and this is voted on by the players, right?
Supposedly.
Is there some Mahomes fatigue, Kansas City fatigue as far as that goes? Because Chris Jones was 6. Travis Kelce's 9.
Kelce in there, yeah.
So 3 of your top 10 players, or 3 of your top 9 players are Chiefs. But they're at 9, 6, and 4. And
yeah, I would really like to see the criteria breakdown, and I'd like to see the real voting breakdown. And there's a reason, you know, there's a reason you have to kind of vote anonymously if it is the players, quote unquote. I mean, I would not be shocked if you came out and we found out tomorrow that some random guy at NFL PR has been scheming on this list for a year just to get the buzz out. They do such a good job of marketing the league that you're talking about the league, even when there's not really much going on in the grand scheme of things. And this is right in there. Yeah.
Yeah. It's, what catches you more, that Mahomes isn't number 1 or he's not the number 1 quarterback?
If I had to pick from those 2 scenarios, that he's not the number 1 QB. And again, like I said, if you just give me regular season only, or with a dash, if you say postseason is really not emphasized very much, I could give you a Lamar Jackson spiel there, because that guy has been a highlight factory and has done some crazy, crazy things with maybe in some regards a less talented team offensively. I mean, Tyreek Hill was with Mahomes for a lot of those years. So that would be more of the shock to me. And I don't know, Hill being number 1, if I am going to get worked up, and I guess kind of maybe here we go, him being number 1, that's tough, man. I totally could see the argument, but it just didn't feel right for some reason to me. It feels like he maybe should have slid back a spot or 2.
It just feels odd to
know.
me, a receiver at number 1, just by virtue of, somebody's got to get him the ball.
I mean, and think about that, I suppose. How about this? We've seen what Mahomes has done post Tyreek Hill, but even with Hill, there's still a lot of folks that have questions, and we'll ask NUBYJAS about this, I guess. There's still a lot of folks that have questions about Tua and where does he fit in the pecking order? And so is it it's a chicken egg situation, right? Is Hill making these receivers? Maybe not, because we've seen what Mahomes has done after, or maybe he's kind of helped too. I don't know. It's kind of a fascinating argument for something I usually try not to get super duper amped up about.
Well, hey, don't let me get you worked up unnecessarily, but I would be interested. Let's see. Hang on a minute, because I'm going to try to tie this up real quick if I can. Tua is 36th on this list.
In the grand scheme of things, what is that?
Joe Burrow is 39th. Now, Joe Burrow did have injuries to deal with last year, but Joe Burrow is 39th. So, just for what that
and yeah, I think that does factor in, right? I mean, if you're ranking the top 100, and you don't just get credit for what we've seen 2 and 3 years ago. I mean, if you're asking, who are the top 100 in the game right now? I could see where somebody would put him ahead, but it's really hard to think about anybody ranking Tua ahead of Burrow, unless maybe you're talking back to that example with Lamar Jackson. Unless you're talking maybe regular season, in which we've seen Tua put up just circus numbers some years.
It would be interesting to know what the criteria was for sure. Wade, we've used the term Friday afternoon news dump. I think we saw it executed coming out of Lexington this past week. The NCAA announced Friday that it has reached an agreement with Kentucky on appropriate penalties stemming from level 2 violations that occurred within the football program. At issue is the fact that at least 11 football players received impermissible benefits for work not performed between spring 2021 and March of 2022. 8 of those players went on to compete while ineligible. The games that those 8 participated in included 17 victories, which will have to be vacated, apparently. 10 of those wins in that 2021 season where Kentucky won the Citrus Bowl and was ranked 18th at the end of the season in the Associated Press Top 25.
Yeah, talk about a little bit of a news dump, right?
Yeah. This comes out on Friday afternoon. I guess I saw it just after we went off the air on Friday, of course. But it's like, what do you think Calipari's response was? Going back to Mark Stoops, as this is a football school. I mean, I think there were a couple of grins, maybe a high five or two in Fayetteville when this came down. So that'd be some good back rooms to be in to listen to some conversations. I will tell you this: the only real news or chatter, I guess, that I did see about this was there are a lot of folks that were talking about Mike Leach and his win percentage is just below. And we've mentioned it before that it's just below that 60% threshold by like one game, I think, even to get into the College Football Hall of Fame. And everybody is wondering / advocating, hey, Mississippi State is not entitled to that win, but man, it'd be sweet if they could go ahead and just give them that win and we could get Coach in there after the fact. Rest in peace. I mean, Kentucky, come on, Kentucky. Do Mike Leach a solid. You've been stripped of the victory anyway. Come on.
Yeah, we forfeit these games, but for this one particular game, we do a special double forfeit or game reversal, something, whatever we got to do, man. Because
whatever it takes. Yeah,
let's get the win going.
You can't claim it anyway. You might as well let Mississippi State. Yeah, You know, do the right thing, Kentucky. Wade, I saw this and my heart kind of went out to you.
Oh boy.
Yeah, Michigan's Sharon Moore could face suspension and a show cause penalty from NCAA in sign stealing investigation. The NCAA has sent a notice of allegations to Michigan, and apparently Moore has been accused of deleting more than 50 text message exchanges between him and Connor Stallions, who is at the center of said sign stealing scheme, or alleged sign stealing scheme. There would also be a show cause for former Michigan coach Jim Harbaugh if he were ever to return to the NCAA level as a result of this, if it all plays out this way. But this is what is being considered. Harbaugh, Stallions, former Michigan assistants Chris Partridge and Denard Robinson are all accused of level 1 violations. The school faces a level 1 violation for a pattern of noncompliance, and Moore's allegations are a level 2 violation, which is not as serious as level 1s, but still, there's the possibility that he could get hit with a show cause as a result. So that is ongoing between the NCAA and Michigan. Never a dull moment for them.
No, and just real quick on that, with Harbaugh being gone, if for some reason he had stuck around, I think he wanted to go back to the NFL, but I think he also read the writing on the wall and said, I'm about to get hammered if I stay. But by him being gone, it's not going to be as bad. And Moore it's an embarrassing situation for a first-year head coach who went on national television and, was crying and getting fired up for Harbaugh. So, it's embarrassing for him personally and somewhat in that regard, I would suppose. But I don't think much is ultimately going to come of this in the sense that you got rid of Harbaugh. Stallions kind of looks like the real bad guy too, because kind of some non-compliance that he's kind of gotten into. Michigan can kind of say, hey, we've got rid of the one super bad egg and we got rid of the rogue agent, if you will. I feel like Moore probably gets dinged, maybe a little suspension. And then it was interesting too, because after the national championship, Charlie Baker got up and said later that Michigan, quote, won the national championship fair and square, which was interesting because they won like 6 really good games versus really tough opponents after all that had came out and after Stallions was gone. So it just to me feels, as a fan and kind of just reading some tea leaves as through these articles here, it feels like it's ultimately going to be maybe a little more than a gentle slap on the wrist, kind of just a little pat, I think. And Moore will probably do a game or two and we'll blow over from there. And then some, kind of like the world works. The folks below Moore, some of these folks like Partridge is already gone. Shoelace, Denard Robinson, he may get a little something, but it feels like Moore, maybe first time leeway, I guess, if you will, in a sense, perhaps.
Go forth and sin no more.
Yeah.
Let's take a break here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we come back to the Lee Company studios, we will be joined by NUBYJAS Wilburn of AllTitans.com, talking a little Titans and a little roster management. Stay tuned after this break.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
The Monday Mirror continues here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Wade Neely over there, Maurice Patton right here, and we are joined now by AllTitans.com's NUBYJAS WILBORN. NUBYJAS.
Yes, sir.
Tilt your camera up just a little bit because we're cutting your. There we go. There we go. We wanted to see all of that bald head. Yes.
Man.
What's going on?
Man, just trying to figure it out, brothers. How about y'all, man? You know how it goes.
Hey, we're just pumped, NUBYJAS. Titans football is back, baby. I mean, yeah, it's the preseason, but it's back, right?
It's something. There are things happening at the facility, apparently. Signing players, and it's a lot, man.
Yeah, talk about signing players because, I mean, again, and I've said it with you, I've said it with other folks as we've talked Titans. I just don't recall, and you have straightened me out every time I've said this. I don't recall as many moves as we've seen out of this Titans front office to address this roster. And your response has been, this is a team that went 6-11 last year. So,
And
I
the
mean,
year before that, right? They were a winning team. I mean,
yeah, so I absolutely get it. But, you know, we are a week into preseason camp now, and we just got word last night that Quandre Diggs is coming in, former Seattle Seahawks safety. You feel like that's an upgrade, but at the same time, it's a week into training camp. How is this guy still available if it is an upgrade?
well, there were a lot of safeties left on the market, as we know. I mean, in fact, there's still safeties left on the market. So it happens. Also, just kind of one of the things that now, because Rand talked about this, even going back to February, where he wanted to leave a certain amount of salary cap space available so they could sign a player. Remember, they got DeAndre Hopkins, who we hope is okay, by the way, you know, with his situation. They got DeAndre Hopkins in camp last year or 2 years ago, whenever that was, when they got Hopkins. So this is kind of a thing in the NFL now. I guess it's the other side of the transfer portal, you know, where
you want to leave a scholarship open, right? Yeah.
Hey, man, but it's the reality, though. I mean, it's the same thing. You want to leave it. And I guess also with the portal, you got to leave NIL money there, too. But nonetheless, you know, because Quandre, this ain't volunteer work anymore. So I say all that to say, I mean, this is just where the NFL is. Is he as good as he was when he was at his best? Probably not. Is he better than what the Titans had? Probably.
Probably so.
Is it enough to take him to a Super Bowl? Yeah, probably not. But, you know, here we are.
What do you like about this move other than it improves them in the middle?
I mean, also, this is someone who's experienced, just someone who has been on winning teams, has been in winning organizations. So I think those are always good attributes you want for a team that, quite honestly, is young. And you talk about last year's team that, you know, lost all those games. I mean, also, how many of those guys who aren't on this year's rosters from last year made another roster. I mean, the quarterback, Ryan Tannehill, for instance, is still out there in the streets. The man was a starting quarterback last year. He can't get a job. So I say all that to say, like, there were some issues, and I think the Titans need people who know how to win.
Yeah, and to your point, Tobias, there have been points, there were points during last year's season where, and 2 years ago with injuries, where you get into a game and you're saying, no offense to whoever it is, but you're like, this is the best that we can put out there. And it just seems like the overall depth was not there. And so if nothing else, the Titans appear to be, whether it's by bringing in quote unquote flashier signings or bringing in some more household like names, it seems like they're trying to at least address some of their depth issues, because they had some guys out there that, to your point, that feel like they would not have made any other roster. And not only are they on the field, they're being relied upon at some points during these last couple of seasons.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, there's a lot that goes back to it, obviously, with the previous GM and coaching staff, with John Robinson at GM, of course, with Mike Vrabel. There's a lot of flaws there, man. I mean, it's just reality. I mean, they were not a good football team. They just weren't. I mean, it's evidenced by record, evidenced by everything that we've seen. They were not a good football team. And quite honestly, they weren't a very well-run organization, if you really look at it. I think now you get Rand in there trying to change things up. You get a new head coach trying to change things up. You get some players and some little bit of a youth movement. Now, they did go older in some of their signings with Calvin Ridley and some of those other guys. So it'll be an interesting mix. I mean, again, I think this is a team that can be better than they were last year. I don't necessarily know if that means it'll result in more wins, but they can be better than what they were last year.
And that's going to be tough for fans to accept, I would think, the fact that they may not have more wins, but they may be better. Because, I mean, who was it that said you are what your record says you are? I mean, that's just going to be an interesting dynamic, particularly in this town, I think, where we've seen this team have some success, and now all of a sudden they're not. But you're telling me we're better, but our record isn't as good as it was in other years with that GM and with that head coach. But these guys know what they're doing. You know, that's, I just can kind of picture that as kind of being the response of certain parts of this fan base when it plays out that way.
Well, I mean, to be honest, other than going to training camp recently, I really hadn't come into contact with very many Titans fans so far. So it actually been kind of good to actually meet some of them and see them. I almost didn't know if they existed. So that's been kind of good to see. But seriously, it is tough, man. I mean, the real question is Will Levis a starting quarterback? Okay. And what type of starting quarterback is he? Is Will Levis a top 15 starting quarterback in the National Football League? If he is, then even if you don't have the wins this year, maybe next year now you're building towards something. Now, unfortunately for him, and I think pretty much every quarterback following him, there's a young man in Houston named C.J. Stroud that's kind of blown all the expectations for a rookie quarterback out of the water with how he did last year, right? I mean, gee, golly, that guy looked pretty good. And now you got Caleb Williams coming in. We'll see what he does. I mean, this is a big year to find out who Will Levis is, to find out if they can improve that offensive line, if they can improve their defensive line, if they can keep players out of trouble, if they can stay healthy, if they can, there's a lot of if in there, man, and not a lot of certainty. I mean, I think they have two solid running backs in Tony Pollard. We'll see what happens with that rotation as they go along with the second-year man out of Tulane, how those two guys work together. I think they have a pretty good receiving core. I think they have a pretty good defensive back unit. And now maybe they have two good safeties who are a little bit older. So we'll see, man.
Tobias, other than running into the friendly neighborhood Titans fans out there at camp, what else did you maybe take away, if anything, from the first real kind of look at these guys as we get into preseason week one?
T'Vondre Sweat's really big, and he's really fast, and he's pretty good at football. I think that's probably number one. Latham as well. I think they did really good with those picks. I've liked what Treylon Burks has been able to do so far. Again, it's early. We'll see. But he looks like he's ready, and now he may get even more of a role depending on what's going on with Hopkins. A little bit concerned about the suspension there for Arden Key. It's kind of a big deal. Might be why maybe he was a little bit chippy with a certain reporter. Well, to be fair, I mean, it doesn't take much to be chippy with that particular person. But I don't think you have to really search for too many reasons to be chippy with that particular guy. However, that might have been part of the fuel there because he knew that was coming. Okay. And also Jeffrey Simmons. Like, is he really locked in? What's going on there?
We talked last week after the word about DeAndre Hopkins came out, and it felt like to me, NUBYJAS, and I know this is your first year with this franchise, but it feels like to me that maybe the Titans are better equipped to handle the prolonged absence of DeAndre Hopkins than maybe they would have been in other years. As you mentioned, Treylon Burks, now in his third season, Nick Westbrook-Akini.
Really
so they've got a little bit more serviceable bodies at that position than they have had, led by obviously Tyler Boyd and Calvin Ridley. But it just feels like they can sustain a loss like that a little bit better than maybe they would have been able to in years past.
Well, you sure better hope so. I mean, it sounds like it. And we'll see. I mean, look, man, DeAndre Hopkins, man was 1,200-yard receiver last year, man. I mean, you just don't replace that, dude. I don't care.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But do I think they can be better off than they were last year? I sure hope so. I really do. I mean, because if not, it's going to be rough, man. I mean, they struggled to pass the ball last year, and they want to throw the ball a lot this year. So maybe with Brian Callahan, with his new system and everything he want to do, maybe it works out. But also, hey, man, Will Levis played, 9 games last year? 9 total NFL games for Will Levis, okay?
Right.
That's a lot to ask, man. It's a lot to ask. I'm just saying. Asking a lot.
While we're talking quarterbacks, what did you see or what have you seen for the battle for the position behind Will Levis in your mind?
I mean, look, Mason Rudolph is a pro, okay? A pro who has won NFL football games, all right? A pro who has won NFL football games and for a pretty decent franchise with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Malik Willis has not done that as of yet. I'm going to give Mason the slight edge, but hey, Malik makes throws. He can move. And, I mean, I think it's going to be a tough situation for him because I think his die is already cast, unfortunately. Maybe if you would have got with someone like Callahan and Nick Holtz and that whole crew sooner, maybe it's different. But I think the guy's die is pretty cast for him. I think it's ultimately going to be Mason Rudolph's job as a backup. I would be surprised if that's not how it goes because, again, you know what you're going to get out of Mason Rudolph. Now, I ain't saying you want him as your starter every day. I ain't saying all that. But, let's say if Levis goes out for a stretch of 4 games, you might still go 3-1 of those games with Mason Rudolph. You don't know that with Malik Willis. And I think they're going to go with the more sure thing.
Makes sense.
It absolutely makes sense. The next question at that point, though, becomes, do they keep him? Do they try to stash him on the practice squad? Or is he just, does he ultimately eventually wind up out in the streets?
It's tough. I mean, I've seen some trade rumors. I haven't really heard much about that as of yet. Of course, they're going to play it close to the vest. I mean, I don't know what you're going to get for him. So maybe you try to stash him. Also, these roster rules keep changing. So you got to look at that too. And how does that work out? And what does he want? So I would say as of now, you probably keep him on the roster, but we'll see. Because, I mean, is it better to have a third quarterback or is it better to have another offensive lineman? I don't know.
While we're talking personnel, NUBYJAS, you mentioned running backs earlier, running backs plural, and they both seem like they could be pretty good. Maybe not a direct replacement for Derrick Henry, but they're also 2 totally different style of backs. What have you seen out of both of those guys? And then I'm curious, what will the Titans' run game just as a scheme look like in your mind this year anyway?
I mean, well, think about it. I mean, you got Pollard, got Tajay Spears. Also, I mean, don't sleep on Julius Chestnut. You know what I'm saying? Maybe find a way as a third running back getting up in there. I mean, they got an interesting little group there with these guys. But ultimately, I think it's going to be Pollard and Spears getting the lion's share of the carries, I believe. And I think the running game is going to look a little different. I think you're going to see maybe two backs, but one of them go out as a wide receiver. You're going to see them catching passes more. You're going to see the run plays look a little different, maybe a little bit more option. I mean, it's not going to be the Derrick Henry 3+ yards in a cloud of dust anymore. I think it's going to look a lot more modern, a lot different than what it has previously. And, but also one of the things the running back coach was talking to us about was how touches doesn't have to be a traditional carry. You know what I'm saying? Maybe it's one of those little short shovel passes. Maybe it's running a route. Maybe it's a trick play or some type of thing. You know what I'm saying? There's different ways to get these guys the ball as the football continues to evolve. And I think you'll see a lot of the evolution, particularly with the Titans running backs.
NUBYJAS WILBORN of AllTitans.com joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. NUBYJAS, anything that we've missed, anything that caught your eye that we've not touched on to this point?
Well, I would say a couple things. Well, one thing I can say safely, I would say overall, I really like where Will Levis is growing. I continue to see him just evolve. I continue to see people rally around him. I am very fascinated as to what he becomes as a quarterback. I mean, you cannot overstate the importance of finding out what he is enough. And he's showing up, man. He's doing all the right things. And I think he has a chance to be a pretty good NFL quarterback. I really think he has a chance to be a guy who you look at and put him in the top half of NFL quarterbacks. I believe that's the case. Now, is he going to be Patrick Mahomes? Let's not go that far.
That's number 4, Patrick Mahomes, to you.
Well,
Number 4 overall in the NFL 100. So that was a point of contention on this show earlier. So we wanted to ask you about that as well.
Well, hey, man, listen, the players vote on that stuff, man. And players have different interpretations as to what other people have. I'm not going to say that they're wrong because they're the ones on the field doing it. Right. You know what I'm saying? I would have had Patrick Mahomes as the number 1 player in the NFL. But again, hey, I'm not out there. So the players vote on it. I don't really know how those votes are tabulated. I have actually seen a ballot before, and let's just say I wouldn't be shocked. Okay. You know how, like, back in the day, they had I guess they still have the coaches poll, right?
Mm-hmm.
You think every coach is filling out that poll himself? And watching all the games in the country and filling out that poll himself. And when he's also preparing for, the teams, recruiting, because, ABC, always be
recruiting. There you go.
You know what I'm saying? So you're doing that. You're doing the dinners. You're doing all this stuff. You really think those coaches sitting down there and putting together that top 25 poll themselves? I mean, honestly,
it's unlikely.
I'm just saying, even with writers, like, how many games does the average sports writer really watch? Like, if you're a beat writer, say you're covering the Vols or Vandy, how many other games are you actually watching?
I can tell you, as a beat writer for both of those at various points in my career, not many.
Right, because you barely have enough time on, like, it's real. On a Saturday, you got your game, everything you got to do. Writing a note, but I know we get way into the weeds of sports journalism here, which I don't know how much about. But I'm just saying, you have a busy day.
You do.
And then if you're lucky, you got a girlfriend or a wife who actually likes you, or husband or whatever, depending on however your game goes or gender or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. You got somebody to come home to and some kids or whatever. You got stuff to do. You're not watching all them games. And as much as I believe the players know what's happening, I also know they're not watching all them games. And I also know sometimes they go off things they hear as opposed to what they see, and I'll just leave it at that.
There we go. NUBYJAS WILBORN of AllTitans.com joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Always a pleasure when we can get him on, and look forward to doing so again soon.
Thank y'all, man. Y'all be good.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. When we return to the Lee Company studios, there's a little something going on over in Paris we probably need to touch on before we get out of here. So let's do that after this break.
Nashville Sounds Baseball is back in Hit City for the 2024 season. Spend your nights and weekends at the ballpark with weekly giveaways, fireworks shows, throwback deals, live music, and more. Top talent will take the field at First Horizon Park against the AAA Minnesota Twins, Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves, St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, and more. Tickets start at just $10 and are available now at NashvilleSounds.com. We will see you in Hit City.
I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely. We are Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Welcome back to the Lee Company studios of our respective homes as we take you into the final segment of today's show. And as we mentioned, there's a little something going on over in Paris. The 2024 Olympics are in full swing. Where should we start, Wade?
Man, you know where we got to start. We saw I went back and watched the entire build up to the 100 meters yesterday at least 3 times. I'm talking the introductions, the music, the lights out. I mean, I saw a tweet. I forget which sports writer it was, or a reporter that was there said, I have never heard a stadium literally a pin you could hear it drop, because they had like a 20-second delay after the music goes out before they take the blocks. And then that was all before the race. That was already crazy enough as is. It was a scene from a movie. And then insanity as Noah. I don't know. I still don't. I don't know that he really won. I'm just going to put it to you like that, because I look at a photo sometimes and I'm like, all right, yeah, he won. Then I look at some and I'm like, I don't think he won. I don't know. It's crazy.
I don't know if he won or not, but he got the gold.
Yeah, man, hey, and sometimes that's just how it has to happen, right?
Yeah, and I mean, it's tough if you are Keshane Thompson, I think, because there were folks calling it live that had him winning it. And you can understand why they would have. And when you look at the photo finish, you can understand why they may still have had him winning it. But Noah Lyles is officially the world's fastest man, winning the 100 meters with what, a 9.783? Is that what it was?
Yeah, we had to go down to like the fourth decimal plate. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, again, edging out Keshane Thompson, and the U.S. went 1-3 in the event, but it was a race for the ages, man. The first U.S. sprinter to win gold in the 100 meters in 20 years, and when they said that, and said that Justin Gatlin in 2004, was the last. Am I that old? The answer, of course, is yes. Yes, I am. But,
yeah, I mean, it did trip you out, but I mean, obviously, there was a gentleman from Jamaica that kind of took care of some business in that event for a long time. So
goodness, yes.
And that's what Noah is going for. And that was what was so cool, because coming into this Olympics, especially, he had talked so much and gotten so much good or bad, depending on your interpretation, publicity and fanfare, and didn't do that great in Tokyo by any stretch of the imagination. And so still continuing to talk and kind of thrust himself into the conversation, only now to come out and back it up. That was the coolest part to me. The fact
There you
that
go.
he totally backs it up. The U.S. wins. And that race was just insane because when you go back and you watch it, I mean, everybody finishes. I mean, there's some photos where they show Lyles and it looks like he's second or third, but he really won, obviously. And then the person off to the left, you're looking and you're like, oh, it looks like they got second maybe. They actually finished like seventh. I mean, it was just insane how bunched up it was at the finish line. It was unlike anything I've seen in a long, long time.
Officially, he and Thompson were both credited with 9.79s, which is unfortunate. But because I'm trying to figure what the actual time was that he was credited with. Lyles 9.784, Thompson 9.789. I mean, that's I don't know how much closer it can get than that. But and here's what's crazy. The 100 ain't even his best sport, his best event.
I just got done right before we went on air. He just cruised in the 200 like it was nothing. That was, now granted, that was in the earlier heat, but I mean, he was out for a jog in the park and dusted everybody.
200 is going to be something to watch, those finals. Yeah, that may have been the most exciting thing we've seen to this point in Paris. But it was far from the only excitement we got yesterday because in golf, Scotty Scheffler virtually came out of nowhere to win gold. What he did, 31 on the final 9?
This dude was on fire. And after Thursday, Friday, we pointed out, or at least I did on this show, and I said, man, I don't know. He's had some struggles with the Ryder Cup. He ain't looking so hot right now. I don't know if he's got it in him. And he didn't have it in him until Sunday. And that's the only day that sometimes that matters. And wow, what a comeback.
You know, when we were talking Friday, we were talking more about Schauffele, obviously, than we were about Scheffler. And
yeah.
But they, you know, some folks kind of came back to him a little bit, and he took advantage, getting past Tommy Fleetwood. John Rahm kind of had a little bit of a come apart. Yeah, this was just kind of stormed out of nowhere again, late to win it. So congratulations to him. It's been a heck of a year for Scotty Scheffler.
You know, I was looking for that tweet. I'm sure you might have seen it earlier, where they've listed all of his activities, I guess, this year.
Accomplishments. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So, and
shooting a 66 after getting out of jail. Yeah, that kind of thing.
I'm not gonna. Well, the jail, just getting imprisoned was one of the accomplishments or noteworthy events, I think, was the way this tweet put it. And I can't find it now, but he has been a couple, months ago. You were thinking he was going to win every tournament the rest of the year, and then he had kind of a little bit of a lull, just by his standards, though. And then to come out and do it like this, that was bonkers. And he's emotional during the medal ceremony. I mean, it was really kind of everything you want from a drama standpoint for the best guy in the U.S. To come out and steal it in many regards, and then showcase to the world kind of what it means and what that event means to him. Man, that is legendary stuff right there from Scotty.
6 birdies in the final 9 holes. 9 under 62. Fleetwood placed second. Hideki Matsuyama placed third for Japan. Won the bronze. So, yeah, that's you know what's cool? And I have to kind of attribute this to some degree because I was watching Sunday Sports Central on News Channel 5 last night with Steve Lehman and John Burton. So I don't want to be accused of stealing anything, but they mentioned, the professional athlete involvement in the Olympics now, because it used to be that there weren't. I mean, only amateurs were eligible to participate in the Olympics. But, now you've got the professional athletes participating in it. And, you would think that it wouldn't mean as much to these guys, but it does. You watch, you watch these basketball players, you watch these golfers, you watch these folks that play for millions of dollars at a time and that kind of thing. And a gold medal means as much to them as anything, it feels like. And so, it's really kind of cool to see.
Especially golf, just because it had been gone for, over 100 years. They went, I think, until 2016 when it comes back. And now it's this new thing and just kind of it's like, and more on Djokovic, I guess, in a second, but the same deal with Djokovic. You have a unique way now to add something to your resume that really you're only going to get 1, 2 chances, maybe 3 at the absolute most. And if you could somehow do that, you ascend to an even crazier level. And that's exactly why I think you see the professionals kind of chase that a little bit. Yeah, they're, excited to compete for Team USA. And it's cool to go to Paris. I wouldn't turn down a free trip either. But going out and being able to notch an extra kind of mark on your resume that nobody else really has is really, really special. And Djokovic winning the gold in tennis is kind of what cemented that too, because you take this already just almost GOAT level resume, and now it just adds one crazy extra wrinkle.
You add a gold medal to it.
Your peers, if they don't get you then, they basically have no chance to get you ever, because there's, like I said, the window is so small with this thing.
Right. Finally, before we get out of here, because I see the clock is ticking, the women's 4x100 meter medley relay swim team just took a hammer to the world record yesterday, excuse me. Swimming a 3:49.63 to win that going away, 3 seconds ahead of Australia. China placed third for the bronze. And as we like to say, there's always a Nashville connection. Reagan Smith led off. Lily King was the second leg. Tori Husky was the anchor. Sitting at number 3, Harpeth Hall graduate Gretchen Walsh.
Holding it down for the red, white, and blue. So
helped pad the U.S. lead in the medal count. I think it was 71 at the end of last night, including 19 gold, putting them comfortably ahead. I think number 2 was 45, and that might have been China. But they are having quite the games, Team USA is. So
yeah, showing up, flexing a little muscle, and winning the 100 meters for the first time in 20 years. I still got goosebumps just thinking about yesterday. And like you said, we're just getting warmed up with what Mr. Lyles and some of the other sprinters can do really here.
Stay tuned. It's going to be a fun week, man, between the Little League regionals and the Olympics continuing, and we got preseason football coming down later this weekend. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Tomorrow, Wade and I will be over at MTSU for their football media day, so be sure and check us out. And that's going to do it for the Monday Mirror edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. We will see you all in the Lee Company studios over in Murfreesboro tomorrow. Be sure and check us out, 2:00.